What's up guys, Brandon Washington here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Zhiyun Crane 2 using it with the Canon 1DX Mark II. Also, make sure you guys stick around to the end of the video because you're not going to want to miss. I'm going to be doing an epic giveaway at the end, so make sure you stick around to find out what that is. Hey, what's up guys, Brandon Washington here, and like I said, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Crane 2 with the 1DX Mark II, and this is actually the second video in a series of videos I'm going to be doing on the Crane 2. Now, if you're new to the channel, make sure you consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you're into the Crane or other filmmaking gear, tutorials, information like that, you're definitely going to want to subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into what I think about this combo. All right, so now I've had this camera for a little while, a couple days now, and I've had a lot of time to play with it. I've been shooting stuff. I've actually taken it out on a few jobs already. I've also actually just been shooting some stuff around my house. If you guys caught my how to balance this with the 1DX video, which I'll leave a little card, you'll know that I got a chance to shoot this, on my skateboard and getting some shots of my son riding his bike, and I was absolutely blown away with those shots. But since having it and being able to actually use this with not only the 1DX, but also with the 80D, I've come up with a few pros and cons as far as what I like about this thing, what I don't like about this thing, and ultimately by the end of the video, hopefully that'll give you guys kind of the information you need to know if you should go ahead and pull the trigger on buying this guy or not. So first of all, let's start off with where I sit as far as gimbals. This one here was actually the first stabilizer I actually bought. This is the Flycam Nano. It was just like a cheap glide cam type knockoff. Worked really well for my small cameras, but once I started upgrading into bigger cameras, it just couldn't handle the workload anymore. I shot on the GlideCam XR Pro with this camera, and I love this, but with glide cams, I always find that the horizon line is never always straight, and it's very difficult to keep that straight using a glide cam. But for run and gun, keeping it super lightweight, this was my go-to for a long time. Somewhere along the way, I bought this guy here, the DJI Osmo Mobile, and then what has been my favorite stabilizer up to this point, and that is my DJI Ronin M. And now most recently, my last purchase has been this guy, the Crane 2. Now, using all these gimbals over all this course of time has given me a lot of experience and has really taught me some of the pros and cons of each device. And so that's pretty much where I am going into what are my thoughts on this guy. So I've never owned a Zhiyun Crane before, but through owning multiple types of gimbals, whether that's motorized or not motorized, all these have allowed me to come up with what my thoughts are pertaining to this guy. All right, so the very first pro that I love about this camera, and that is that it actually can hold my camera. Like I've said, one-handed gimbals were never designed for big cameras until now. And now all of us guys who shoot on bigger cameras can now get into this world. I mean, I have seen and talked to personally other filmmakers who've reached out to me, especially after my last video, to let me know that they've been able to balance the C200 on this guy. I've seen Reds balanced on this guy, obviously the 1DX balanced on this guy. And so what this tells me is that bigger cameras are now gonna be able to get into this world. And that is amazing. I think it's a huge step forward because yes, using Movies are great, using Ronins are great. Certain shooting situations just don't allow you to have such a big gimbal and being able to run around with that big gimbal. And so having something smaller like this that is motorized is great, and I love that it can support bigger cameras. Now, the second thing that I love about this thing is something that I think is going crazy undervalued, and I think primarily because it only works for Canon right now, and that is that this thing has a built-in follow focus. So what I mean by that is there's a little knob on the side of this guy that actually, as you turn it, your camera will automatically pull focus. Now, in order to do this, you have to make sure your camera is in manual focus mode, and you have to have the USB cable plugged in and have your camera actually selected. So you have to go through the settings and actually say that this is a Canon camera. Once you do that, as long as you're using Canon lenses, you can actually use this focus system. And I think this is crazy that this is something that's built into this guy. Now, one little disclaimer, this thing is very sensitive. If you guys have ever used a follow focus with a photography lens, you know it doesn't take a lot of movement in order to get your focus right. So just keep that in mind. It is a little sensitive, but I do love that that is a feature built into this guy. Now, the next one that I love, it kind of goes directly next to that follow focus, and that is this little joystick menu system. And not only that, the fact that this joystick can actually move the gimbal and use it. We've seen lots of gimbals that do that. But the fact that you can also use this to be able to change the settings on your camera. I can't tell you how awesome this is, because once you have your camera stabilized on the actual gimbal, you don't want to mess with your camera anymore. You don't want to be touching it. You don't want to be, trying to figure out your settings, changing ISO, changing aperture, because now you're pushing against the motors, and we don't want to do that. So the fact that they have it built in that you can actually change your shutter speed, change your ISO, change your aperture right from the gimbal itself, that in my opinion is a huge game changer. And that takes this thing even to a higher level. Now, the next thing that I love about this guy, which I know it sounds like a lot of stuff because there are a lot of things that I'm loving about this, and that is the fact that it comes with a built-in tripod stand. And so what this means is if you can get to any flat surface, you can set this guy down and balance it. I can't tell you how many times I've been out shooting with my Ronin and I either have forgotten my tuning stand, or it becomes a hassle trying to carry that thing around while I'm getting shots. Even if it's not even to balance or tune my Ronin, it's just to put it down to give my arms a break. So the fact that this has this built in, I don't have to carry around something extra, that takes this again to that next level. I can really tell that they did their homework and figured out what is good, what is bad, what are people wanting out of this thing. And that is something that it seems very small, but it is a huge beneficial. One little pro tip is that the thread on the bottom that it uses for that little tripod can work with any tripod stand. So you can actually attach like a quick release plate to the bottom of that and hook it into tripod legs if you want it higher up off the ground, for example. So I think that that's a really awesome opportunity that they had that on the bottom of this. And I've used that so many times just to even give my arms a break. And the last, but certainly not least thing that I love about this thing, and that is the battery life. Zhiyun right now claims that it has an 18-hour battery life. Now, do I know for sure if it lasts all 18 hours? No, and that's because I can't seem to kill this thing. I've used this thing multiple times throughout the day, getting shots over multiple days, and I've never had the battery die on me. I mean, legitimately right now, I just have it on. Right now, just sitting here, I just have it turned on. And the reason why I have that is because I'm actually trying to test right now to find out really how long does the battery last on this guy, because it seems to last forever. So, if you guys are planning on getting this and you're worried about battery life or thinking about buying extra batteries, I don't think you really need them, because this thing right now seems to last forever. All right, so those are all the things that I absolutely love about this guy. Now let's jump into a few of the things that are cons for me. And the first is there is no way to attach the 1DX Mark II to this guy via a USB cable, or at least not one that comes with it. See, on the 1DX Mark II, it actually uses a USB 3.0 cable, and it has to go into this little micro USB port that's actually on the crane. Well, the problem with that is it doesn't come with that cable. So what that means for me, at least right now, is when I'm using my 1DX, I can't use it for, or I can't use the crane for, changing my ISO, aperture, shutter speed. I can't use the follow focus system. And so with my 1DX, that's one huge kind of letdown, is that as much as I love the crane, and when I've used it with my 80D, it gives me all those awesome features, and I love all that. But with the 1DX, I'm gonna lose out on some of those features, at least right now. I haven't been able to find like a reasonable size micro USB to USB 3.0 cable, so I can try to test and see if, even though it's not one of their cables, if it'll still work. But as soon as I do, I'll be sure to put out another video letting you guys know how that works. Or make sure you check the comments, and I'll be sure to update those comments with if that ever works for me. The other thing I don't like about this is, if you guys have already seen my how to balance this guy, with the 1DX is that I actually had to do a little rigging in order to get it to balance. And that literally is only due to this little notch that they did not extend to make it go lower so it could fit the 1DX. I hate that little notch. I wish they would have just removed that altogether, because as you guys can see, the 1DX balances perfectly fine without it. The way I told you guys to balance it in that video, I haven't had any issues. Just make sure you get your you get all your screws screwed in really tight. But other than that, it works fine. So that one little notch is keeping a lot of people from being able to balance this thing. And I hate that I had to do that little hack. Although I will say it has worked no problem. And the last little gripe that I have about this camera, and that has to do with how one of the axes actually work, and that it has to do with how this thing spins. So let me show you. So when you have your 1DX in lock mode and you use your knob, you can actually turn your 1DX, or you can actually turn your crane on this little axis, which I think is amazing. So what I want to do is actually tilt my crane up like this and then hold my crane down and then use that same axis to actually flip my camera, but it won't let me. And I don't know exactly why at this point the crane will not spin, because I think that would make for a pretty awesome, amazing shot to have your camera actually spinning kind of in this general direction. But for whatever reason, whenever your camera is laying down parallel to the ground, it will not turn on that axis. And I know it's a really small kind of gripe, but it's one of my gripes nonetheless. So there you have it, guys. Those are a few of my pros and cons and my thoughts as far as things I love about this Crane 1DX Mark II setup, and a few things that I don't like about it. My final thoughts are, you know, who do I think this setup is perfect for? Really, anybody who has a 1DX Mark II or even a C200 for that matter. You know, for 750 bucks, this is a great addition to your gear arsenal. I think, you know, you should go ahead and pick this up. It's definitely worth the buy. You know, if you already have, like, you know, a Ronin, should you still get one of these guys? I think so, because I think in a lot of situations, your Ronin is just not gonna be perfect for you, but this guy could really come in a huge clutch. Now, that doesn't mean that this will completely, you know, get rid of your Ronin, because in some certain situations, you might want to rig out your Ronin with, you know, a follow focus if you're using cinema lenses, or if you want to actually have a monitor attached, which I do believe there's a way to attach a monitor to this guy, but I will let you guys know that in a future video. But, you know, there's still certain reasons why you may want to hold on to your Ronin. But here comes my biggest dilemma, and the biggest question I wanted to ask myself throughout this whole process of owning this guy is, can this replace my glide cam? The whole reason why I've kept my glide cam up to this point is because it's lightweight, it's easy to travel with. I can just throw it in a bag or throw it in a backpack. It doesn't need its own Pelican case. The other thing I like about it is that it doesn't run on batteries, so that means I can use it all day and not have to worry about charging it. And then the other thing that I liked about it was the fact of how lightweight it was on its own. Well, all those boxes get checked with this guy, except for the fact that yes, it does run on battery, but it still lasts all day and actually lasts multiple days. So this thing pretty much replaces my glide cam, which is now where the point of what do I do with my glide cam? So for you guys, what I'm actually gonna be doing with my glide cam is actually giving it away. I get asked all the time, you know, can I have free gear, or do you have any old gear that you don't use anymore? How can I get some of your extra gear? Well, this is gonna be my opportunity to give you guys some gear I won't be using anymore. So as of right now, I am doing a special giveaway on the glide cam. There's a link in the description to make sure you guys can enter that. There's two ways to enter. One, be following me on my Instagram account. Two, be subscribed here on my YouTube for a second entry. And then there's a third secret entry that's not even a part of that one down there. And that will actually allow you to have a third secret entry on entering this. And all you have to do is reshare my post that I'll have on my Instagram. That's gonna give you guys another way to enter into this competition to win this glide cam. So you have 3 ways. You have 2 ways through the link below, and you have a 3rd secret way on how you can enter. So if you guys have watched all the way through to the end of this video, congratulations, you guys have an upper hand on those who didn't, and so you get a chance to enter into this competition and hopefully win this glide cam. Also, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, this is just our 2nd video on this series about the crane, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so you can watch more videos on this in the future. But with all this being said, if you thought this was helpful, hit that thumbs up button. Also, if you still have questions, leave those comments down below so that way I can answer those in future videos. And until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.